good morning. This is the third episode of FAFO and Chill, in which the Chainstack Developer Experience team talks about the various things we've been building and exploring within the Web3 space over the past few weeks. In classic Web3 fashion, we spend a lot of time exploring the Web3 space and building cool tools. FAFO and Chill is where we talk about these things and dive into the world of Web3 tech. Today, we're mainly talking about Web3 security, with a specific spin on our faucet. Recently, we released a faucet for Sepolia and Gwirly, and it got a lot of really great adoption over the first few weeks. But unfortunately, last week, it was drained for almost $200 in Gwirly ETH. We're going to talk about how that happened, why that happened, and why it's important to take precautionary measures to prevent things like these within your application. But before we jump into that conversation, let's quickly go through the three speakers that we have today. This is the standard speaker lineup that we have for most of these podcasts. We might have more in the future, but for now, today we have number one, myself. My name is Tabasco. My real name is Ethan. I'm the developer relations lead here at Chainstack. With me, I have Ake, our director of developer experience, and David, our developer advocates lead. So what's up, guys? How are you guys doing?
Good.
Hello.
It's 7 a.m. in Singapore. Yeah, I always like to do. So Chainstack is international again, and I always like doing this roll call of where all the people are and what time it is. At some point, we had I think 16-hour difference between the further members of the developer experience team, which is just crazy. But yeah, 7 a.m. here in Singapore, drinking coffee, drinking some green tea. Here, what about you guys?
Nice.
It's
5 p.m. over here. I'm also drinking an energy drink, trying to get through the end of the day. But yeah, I think it's that's a pretty big difference. I can't calculate the numbers in my head, but
yeah,
I think it's even bigger for David. David, what time is it for you?
For me, it's just 8 o'clock in the evening, so pretty much
It's almost the end of the day.
opposites between me and Ake. And I forgot my water bottle, so I got nothing to drink.
By the way, I was thinking, guys, to get more attention to the episode, should we just do the cringy stuff like, oh my god, we got drained. And in the intro, we should put 9,000 of Ethereum. We got drained, all this stuff just gone.
Right.
Wow, we tried sending an on-chain message to this dude. We got hacked, blah, blah, blah.
We'll make a thumbnail of
And then
this.
people will be
That'd work.
yeah.
Right.
And then people will be just disappointed, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
That's
Don't
true.
hate
That's
the
what
player, hate the game.
Right.
the great
Well, I mean, it's
Chainstack
true. All these things happen.
Yeah, all of these things did happen.
Right.
We're going to go through. Something else I just noticed, because I'm looking at the Chainstack logo. Do you think we should do the sign? Does this look like Chainstack?
kind of does.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe they're all
It's
little bit.
here.
Yeah. Gang sign. Chainstack gang sign.
Something for the thumbnail.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, another fun week at Chainstack.
Somewhat fun.
Yeah.
The hack wasn't very fun. Good learning experience though.
I thought it
Always
was
fun. I
interesting.
think it's always fun.
After I learned what happened, I just couldn't stop laughing. To be honest.
It's a bear market story. It's like a full bear market. This person again. Okay, let's go through everything. Then we'll send a message to the person again.
Yeah, so
I guess
to give a quick recap of what we're talking about. So like I mentioned in the intro, we released a faucet, I'd say, what was it, 3 weeks ago, David? So I think we released a faucet and it got, I don't know, maybe 100-ish queries over the past, first few weeks that it was out. And then all of a sudden, I was out on vacation. I got a message from David and he said, the faucet's been drained. All of our
This thing always happens. Always happens. So whenever somebody is either asleep or on vacation, right? And it's always like this message. It just comes through, and you don't really want to be getting
And the
this
funny
message,
thing
right?
is that we didn't even realize
it
for
always-
something like 12 hours or a day. I think a full day probably went by before we even realized it, because no one complained
We
about
didn't
it.
set up any of the checks because
No, which we will now.
because you don't really need it, right? So I think we're just front running this, but yeah.
Yeah. So the big thing with the faucet, and actually the way that the Chainstack platform in general works, is that when you use either Chainstack or one of our services, one of our tools, you sign up for the platform and you have to go through a credit card check. So you submit a credit card. This is for a few purposes. Number one, this is for human verification. So making sure that we don't have bots signing up for our services and taking up our RPC resources or whatever it may be. And also so that you can easily purchase things and upgrade your plan, stuff like that, without having to add a card later on. So this is kind of what we assumed would be the key, like, stop and key check for further wallet drains, right? Or faucet drains. So, we set up the faucet. We had no main security. We didn't have main net balance checks. We didn't have Twitter connections or whatever. We just had the assumption that the fundamental way that the Chainstack platform operates would stop any realistic spam attack from happening. Because what it meant is that a attacker would have to sign up for thousands of Chainstack accounts, all of which would need a valid credit card. And in theory, this seems like, oh wow, that would never work. I mean, unless you are very determined to get that $150 in Go early ETH. I mean, you'd have to do a lot for that. But we underestimated the will of some people to
the bear market. I call it the bear market story.
Yeah, because we even I don't know how they did it, and still when I got the message from David, I was like, how did we remove credit cards? What happened? Because I thought this was a pretty foolproof method, but I guess what happened is that the credit card verification wasn't foolproof, so they figured out a way to create a bunch of credit cards and basically get through the platform side spam detection. So with the previous way that the faucet function is that as soon as you create an account and get an API key, you have full reign access to the faucet. So the only check was that credit card when it comes to signing up. And this, of course, is a problem because as soon as you get past that single point of failure, the credit card, you can now spam attack the faucet. It didn't even have a very high rate limit, so it was there wasn't many hoops you had to go through. And when we're talking about Web3 security or security in general, a single point of failure is always a bad thing. And we made the unfortunate mistake of having a single point of failure present within the attack defense of the faucet. And that single point of failure was the credit card signup. So we went through it. They created all these accounts, and they automatically queried all these accounts to request funds from the faucet. Our faucet only does up to 0.5 Go early ETH per request. They did 0.5 over and over again, automatically sent it out to this master wallet. That master wallet bridged the funds and sold them for, I think, about $250-ish, which it's not a very big heist. It's a pretty small amount. But it's good because I think for us as developer experience team, as builders ourselves, it was a great learning experience because, it all goes to show when you create applications like this, especially applications that handle money, handle funds, even if they're testnet funds that are largely worthless, it's important to take necessary precautions to secure your application. So maybe David, do you want to talk a little bit more about the attack before we get on to maybe the architecture and what we're going to do to prevent it in the future? You want to talk a little bit more about what actually happened, David?
Yeah, sure. So the story is kind of funny because I was just minding my business, and then Peter, our copywriter, sent me a text like, "Hey, there is something wrong with the faucet. I get this error." And I look at the error, and the error says insufficient balance for value plus gas or something like that. I'm like, wait a second. That means that there is not enough ETH. So I go check, and I see, 0.3 ETH left, and I'm like, wow, did so many people sign up to use it? That's pretty good. That was my first thought, kind of naive, like, oh, wow, really cool. So many people used it that they already went through 9,000 ETH. And then I start looking at these transactions, and I see how they are happening almost all at the same time. There were, 4 transactions happening in a block, another 5 transactions in another block. So they were really stacked up like that. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't look very good. And at first I was really kind of disappointed because I'm like, man, I'm the one who basically designed this thing mostly, and I missed something. The thing that I built, it's off. After just a month, someone was able to drain it. And I think it was my evening, so I didn't really have access to many other resources. So I just text the DevOps guy that has access to the logs, and I'm like, hey, can you check what's going on? And I mentioned it in the thread, and then someone comes up and is like, oh, wait a second. Oh, is this why we had this bot attack over the weekend where someone created 13,000 accounts? And I'm like, oh, wait a moment.
So let me just interject a little bit in here. The faucet, it's a girly faucet, right? So we tried to keep the architecture as simple as possible, right? We built it, while having it cool, but we didn't really want to involve any complexity, introduce any complexity on top of what we already have. But the platform itself, we were under some kind of an attack of thousands and thousands of accounts created. Our team was on this. It was all fine. We just we were alerted from the first the moment those thousands of accounts started getting created and all those API keys being requested. We just didn't connect this to the wallet drain. We thought all those people, they really wanted to use our platform, the endpoints themselves, for free, right? Which is, by the way, anyone listening to this, of course, you can sign up and get 3 million requests per month for free for our multi-chain platform. And all those thousands of accounts being created on Chainstack, we thought that it was just some builders, some people are really trying to get those millions of requests from the platform, which is a good platform, right? Chainstack is a great platform, right? Right.
I wasn't even
so we
aware
just
that
didn't
that
connect well, I was, and
I wasn't.
ops and engineering, even the sales guys were aware. But anyway, so we just connect this to the faucet itself.
And so we realized that someone basically created tens of thousands of accounts. I think it was a total of 13,000 or something like that, 30,000 accounts. They basically farmed the API keys from each of these accounts and then use another bot to just use the faucet API, which you could see in the transactions. I think what's going on, or what was happening, is that this guy had a script that will create a new wallet with Web3.js, Ethers, or whatever. It's like a line of code. It's super easy. So it creates a new wallet, picks up a new API key from an array or somewhere, using request, and then automatically transfer whatever gets to the wallet to another one, because we saw that each transaction was going to a different wallet that was empty. So I was basically extracting the maximum amount. Since, to give some context, our faucet only allows to receive up to 0.5 ETH. That means that if you already have a balance which is lower than 0.5, it's basically going to top it up. But if it's 0, obviously you're going to receive the full 0.5. And then once they will receive 0.5, it will automatically send it to another wallet, which then we saw that bridge it to mainnet. I thought it was quite clever. I obviously was underestimating the power of some free money, I was expecting. So the logic of the security that we added to it, so the security aspect is first the 0.5 maximum limit. So again, if you have already a balance, you're only going to receive a part of it. Because the idea is for developers to use it to develop, you shouldn't really need much more than that. And then it goes through the API key that it picks up the organization ID from Chainstack, which is unique, and it puts it in a database with a time lock of 24 hours. We don't really track the address because I thought it was quite useless. People can change accounts and addresses very easy, so I didn't bother tracking that. I figured, we track the organization ID. It's unique. To create a new account, you need a credit card. I figured, there are going to be people making multiple accounts. I'm expecting people to make maybe 3-4 accounts to get a few more. I accept that. I was not expecting that it was so easy to create 13,000 accounts, to be honest. I was expecting that we had a little bit more security on that side. But
that thing is closed, by the way. Anyone who's willing to replicate, you're not going to be able to do it either on the faucet side or on the platform side or whatever. And we do welcome all the signups though. But before we go, just through the architecture and all the stuff that we added, that you guys added to as additional checks to the faucet right now. Couple of things. First is whoever did this, congrats, person, dude, whoever you are, come on our podcast. You can totally stay on. I sent this person a couple of on-chain messages on Girly, on Ethereum mainnet, to a couple of different addresses that he used, or she, that they used. And then, if you can read the message, just, message me. Never message me back, of course, but still. But yeah, come on our podcast. Let's talk. It's just fun. I love stories, right? Stories are great in Web3 and blockchain in general. And just stories add so much context to anything that's going on there. Another cool thing is when I was looking into all the transactions, to bridge Girly ETH from to the mainnet and then to the mainnet Ethereum and then swap it for real ETH. This person used Layer 0, which is cool. I love Layer 0. Kind of one of my favorite, probably my most favorite project in to be building bridges, and it's worked, and it was like, wow, this is Stargate Layer 0, this is everything is just so cool around about this. Yeah, let's go through the architecture first, and how we secured this. And then let's just go through the architecture, the current faucet architecture, because most of the people are probably not familiar with how the faucet is designed.
Sure. It's actually very simple. I try to keep it as simple as possible. That's really my motto, my mantra is, if something is too complex, if I have to spend 2 days to figure out a step, it's too complex, better do something simple. So it's really just a server basically running as an API. So it's a server which accepts a few endpoints, in this case Sepolia and Girly. And then these two endpoints are basically connected to the modules from each chain. And the module itself has a few different scripts that runs some checks, but the main story is a request is received to the server. If it's a Girly on Sepolia endpoint, is going to be sent to the module. So the first thing that is going to happen is that it checks the balance. So it goes through a script that uses a Chainstack node to take the address coming, the request coming with the address coming with the request, checks its balance. If it's below 0.5, it says okay, keep going, and then it checks the database at that point. Because when you are, I'm not sure how much we're supposed to share about this. But if it's not okay, we can cut it. But so when you use a Chainstack API key, what's happening in the background is that the API key is turned into a JSON Web Token. And this JSON Web Token holds a bunch of information coming from the account. It holds user account, emails, and organization ID. And so from this JWT, we pick the organization ID, we take the organization ID, and then we match it in the database. If it doesn't find it in the database, it's going to put a new entry saying, hey, this guy is requesting is a new entry. This is the organization ID. This is the timestamp. This request is finalized. And then it moves on. And at that point, if that check is valid, it's going to call the script to send the ETH, which is just a regular sending transaction with Web3.js. That it simply sends the difference because there is the calculation of the difference between the balance in the account and the maximum allowed. So I don't know, if you have 0.2 ETH in your account, it's going to show, okay, this guy can receive up to 0.3, and that's how much is sent out. It works pretty much the same on both sides. There are some helper scripts to calculate gas fees and stuff like that. and that's it. If something
Yeah.
goes wrong in the middle, the UI or the API call is going to receive a message saying, "Hey, this what went wrong." Yeah, I think this is pretty standard.
The cool thing about this is how both the platform and the nodes itself and the endpoints were able to handle thousands and thousands of transactions. Just this is like very, very cheap. I think it's very, very cheap scale, load testing, scale testing, stress testing of our infrastructure. It was like, if you go to somebody and say, hey, you want to stress test the platform, and they'll
drain the faucet.
The nodes and the endpoint, the bill you're going to set, yeah. And the security kind of thing as well, right? The bill that you're going to have is not $250 or however.
I was actually
this person got out of this. So it's cool.
Was actually the cool part. Yeah, I was. I think that's the positive note that we took out of it. Because when I was designing this thing, I was a little bit worried about the scaling because I'm using normal tools. The server is an Express.js script. It's normal tools used every day. And I was actually pleasantly surprised when hey, 20,000 transactions appeared in a few hours, and it was handled fine. If the guy was able to drain the whole thing, it means that it didn't crash. The nonce handling and all the concurrent request handling works fine. The logic is good. So that was a plus for me, to be honest. Like, it worked. The infrastructure held it. The platform was able to hold 13,000 signups. So
the node software as well. What client are we running there? Is it Guess or Aragon? I think it's Guess, right?
Yeah, they're both good. On the testnets, yeah.
So yeah, kudos to Guess. Kudos to Go Ethereum, the OGs of this space. There is a reason they were the dominant, probably still is, the dominant node software on the Ethereum mainnet, being able to handle that much. And one thing is just one more thing is I had some relatively brief time working in security as well. My Web3 full-time life, and one thing is that to always keep in mind is the internet is this hostile kind of environment. So never underappreciate the length people will go just to break something, to hack into stuff, which is crazy. Which is something for everybody to keep in mind. Always, it's very, very hostile.
Yeah, that was a big point of because we came to the problem after all this hack. So real quick, before I go into the solutions, I'm gonna quickly recap what we talked about. So number one, kind of what we talked about so far is that we released this faucet, did pretty well until somebody realized that the Gorilla ETH in the faucet was actually worth a little bit of money. So they created 13,000 accounts with credit cards on the Chainstack platform, and then used those to automate API key farms, and then pushed a bunch of transactions to the faucet and automatically withdrew all of it, and they cashed in on their grand prize of $250. Which again, like they mentioned, is a good price for us in terms of security auditing and load balancing for our nodes. Everything handled that. Because when this happened, David messaged me. He was he said, we got drained, and then the first thing after that was that he said something I can't believe it handled that or something. It was the priority here is that $250 is not that much money, but I think and this goes for most applications, most builders, whenever you're building anything, right? Most of the time when bad things happen, it's almost always and bad thing in air quotes, because most things, especially in Web3, can be turned around as well, this is an opportunity for me to know the limits of my application, to know, maybe where I need to improve my application. And that's exactly what we kind of did here. So, after this drain, we realized, okay, well, this wallet clearly is not at all secure enough to prevent against people that are determined enough to drain the faucet. This is a big problem because we want to provide the service to the community without being in constant fear that somebody will, take all of the Gorilla ETH. And what's more important than the money aspect of it, we have plenty of Gorilla ETH, but the more important part is that it disables the faucet. And we want this faucet to be open to the community, and we want developers to leverage this to create applications. So we came to this kind of fork in the road, but it was like, okay, how do we protect the faucet? More importantly, how do we protect the faucet alone without thinking about the platform, right? So we want to find a solution that is exclusively for the faucet without having to go over to say, oh, well, we need to pay for better Stripe credit card verifications, or we need to add a CAPTCHA to API key creations on the platform, right? We wanted to come up with a solution that worked exclusively solo for the faucet that would achieve a few things. Number one, what we wanted to achieve was maintaining accessibility. So we wanted to have a solution that didn't lock people out of using the faucet, right? So like our original solution and our like quick duct tape patch of the faucet after it was drained was, okay, well, we just require a minimum mainnet Ethereum balance, right? So like you need like, what's it, like $15 on Ethereum or a little bit less than that. And
like
then
$4.
if you, $4, yeah. Which is still like, when it comes to like $250 of Gorilla ETH, it would be just not profitable to, do 15,000 funded Ethereum mainnet accounts, which is great because it means that this limitation, this sort of regulation on who can query the faucet based upon the amount of Ethereum that they have in their mainnet balance, it deters people because it's just, at that point, it's still technically possible to drain the wallet, but it requires too much money and it's impractical. So this is kind of our duct tape solution. But the problem with the solution is that it locks people out of actually using the faucet, right? If you want to get Gorilla Ethereum and you don't have mainnet balance and you go to Chainstack and they say, oh, well, sign up for an account and have mainnet balance, that's just too much, right? For developers to effectively leverage the faucet. So, I can't share the exact solution because we're actually implementing it into the platform. And it's a pretty unique solution because, there's a lot of faucets on the market. And whenever you're coming up with a solution to anything, it's always important to think outside of what other people have done. I try to come up with a solution that meets the needs of your user base and the needs of your application, which is what we did here, right? So we wanted to come up with a solution that met those two needs, that was accessible at first and foremost, and that could prevent spam, right? That was robust enough to prevent a drain from happening again. So the solution that we came up with was pretty interesting. And I actually, I think it was maybe 11 p.m. last night, 10 p.m. And I sat there, I was like, I should think of a solution for this. So I just I turned everything off and I was like, just stop for like half an hour of like, how can we solve this? And I wrote down all these ideas and I finally figured it out. I talked to ChatGPT and I made ChatGPT create a flowchart of the process of how it would all pan out. Anyway, it was like 2 hours of me just experimenting, but this is, quintessential FAFO. But, at the end of it, we came up with a solution that is kind of the best of both worlds in my eyes, at least. So what this does at its foundation is that I call it discriminate mainnet balance checks. So before, mainnet balance checks were...
pretty sophisticated. Cool, that sounds pretty cool. All right, I'm excited.
Previously, and the discriminate word is kind of the key factor here, because previously the duct tape solution, right? And by duct tape solution, I just mean doesn't meet all of our needs, just fixes it and we can leave it there until we, actually patch it up. Previously the solution was indiscriminate mainnet balance checks, right? So this means that everybody that queries a wallet needs their mainnet balance to be checked, right? It needs to meet a minimum and then they get it through. The difference between that and the solution that, I came up with on 5 hours of sleep yesterday was, and when I was writing it, I was like, this might be a terrible idea. I was like, David's gonna, think this is stupid. But I was like, whatever, we'll see. But anyways, this solution is what I call indiscriminate mainnet balance checks, or not indiscriminate, discriminate. So indiscriminate means that it happens regardless of who you are, regardless of the status of the faucet. Every transaction is checked for mainnet balance. Discriminate, the ulterior, is means that it only checks the mainnet balance and puts the requester through that sort of minimum mainnet balance qualification if it has reason to, right? So it's I came up with an analogy for this. I can't think of it now, but it was this was the analogy. I was thinking about this earlier today. I just remembered it. The analogy that I was thinking about in my head earlier today was, if you're wearing a bulletproof vest, you don't wear a bulletproof vest to go to Walmart or to get a coffee from Starbucks, right? You wear it when you're expecting to be shot. So it's the same sort of idea here, where it's like we only do this sort of extreme minimum mainnet balance measure when we're expecting an attack. Now, the way that we qualify that, is there an attack happening? Is there suspicious activity? I can't get into because then that would ruin the whole point of it. It would make it very easy to get through the wallet or the faucet. But this was kind of the line of thinking. It was like, well, what this achieves is that most people, when they query the faucet, will be able to do it without any minimum balance. They can create a fresh wallet, a fresh Chainstack account, and query the faucet and get their 0.5 Gorilla ETH with no problem, right? That wasn't possible with our previous solution. Now, every once in a while, if there is suspicious activity qualified by, the thing that we're not mentioning here, then that's when a minimum mainnet balance check comes in that will either stop the attacker, right? Because we've already seen this to be an effective solution to stop attacks because it's not profitable, and it's too much work for the attacker to get a relatively small amount of money. And even if the requester isn't an attacker, then it's only one person every few weeks, probably every few months even, that has to confirm their mainnet balance. This is much better than having to confirm mainnet balance for every request, right? One every once in a while, if there's suspicious activity detected. So this is the solution we came up with, and we're going to be implementing. Actually, before this call, I finished it. So
wow, okay.
We'll see.
I don't even know the underlying algorithm, but this yet at least, or but this sounds very, very fascinating. And also, anyone listening to this, do you guys know any other team that would put that much effort into making your life easier, right? I think that's like, I really love our process. And also this, don't you just love being on, being like developer experience? You just get tons of FAFO.
Right.
FAFO around stuff. Like, it's not the boilerplate solution that, people would go to and just, if you have somebody implement a process, just go, hey, let's do, what's everybody's doing, and then just implement the same thing. And it's really painful for the end user. I know, we all know, right? Everybody using the process is just do this, do that, just, making you jump through hoops. And when you're in the state of implementing something for yourself and you need this testnet ETH or whatever the token is urgently, and just, and just run around the internet and just, hey, do this captcha, do this like Twitter tweets, and you don't have Twitter, or you don't really want to be doing this, or you just tweet this and then delete this because you don't want to be on your timeline, or just thinking, should I be using this address, which is also public address, or should I be just switching my MetaMask account between different addresses? Should I just create a new one and save the private key for something just to get, this thing, it just, it like knocks you out of your building kind of focus, mood, state for at least 30 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe because you need to dive back into it, and it's just very annoyed, right? You're just very annoyed. So, and I love that you guys, and so much effort into making the life easier for people and for all the builders out there, and having the wallet just top up, the address just top up automatically whenever you need this. It's, when you talk adoption, this is the thing I'm talking about. It's not going to everybody on the street or like in your coffee shops and whatever. Do you accept Bitcoin? That's not what, that's like everybody is, I think at this point is just annoyed over, people, hey, do they accept like Ethereum? Can I pay for my coffee with Ethereum? No, adoption is making, the developer not get knocked out and just, out of the state of building for all the, all this cool stuff. That's what I'm talking about. It's really cool. Yeah, I have the privilege of being able to see the underlying algo, so I'm kind of, I'm very, very excited. And you guys should be, anybody listening who doesn't know the algo, you should be jealous of this. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Of me having the insider information. But that's very cool. That's very cool. I love it.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool. I'll send you the flowchart that I had ChatGPT make me. But I was actually talking on Twitter today to somebody in the Solana community. I think you brought up a good point about like mainstream adoption, like what's important when it comes to tools like the faucet and whatnot. And this guy, I believe what he said was that what's important isn't necessarily like creating more developer tools. He said that what's more important is creating products that serve real people. And my response was like, well, I sort of agree with that. I don't at the same time. So his claim was that we should stop focusing on infrastructure and developer tools and start focusing on exclusively building applications that service the real world, service real people. And my response was, kind of, because it's my belief, and this is, there's a few people that agree with me, is that infrastructure tools, right? Even tools as simple as like the faucet that we're building, right? In the back end, it's getting really complicated, but on the front end, it's very simple. It's just getting testnet Ethereum for your application. Or more complicated infrastructure like RPC nodes and subgraphs, right? These things at the foundation enable expanded product use cases, reduce development friction, like the faucet, for example, right? Like without even getting into complicated infrastructure like RPCs. The faucet is a key example of something that can reduce development friction, right? If every other faucet requires you to sign up for an account, tweet something on Twitter, connect your wallet, and then do a spin, then it's going to be really difficult to start creating your application because it's like there's all these hoops you have to jump through. Versus if there's a wallet, on the other hand, that very simply you can get one API key from one account and actually automate the process of refilling your balance through an API. And this is something that at its core reduces friction of application development. So my response to the question, which to kind of rephrase, his original claim was that we should stop focusing on infrastructure and developer tooling and start focusing on product. My answer to that was that actually developer tooling and infrastructure, like I said, even with things as simple as like a nice faucet, these are things that lead to the potential to create enhanced products, right? Without the infrastructure, without like quality developer tooling, without things like a faucet that works for a developer, without things like infrastructure that's efficient, then you can't create applications that service the real world because you need, at the foundation of when you're building things, you need the infrastructure to do that. So my response primarily was that if we want to focus on adoption, if we want to build applications that people use, like Ake said, first and foremost, we need the tools and we need the things available to developers for them to build. We need faucets, right, that work for them. We need RPCs that are affordable, that are performant. We need multiple different avenues of data solutions to achieve a variety of tasks. And once we have a robust ecosystem of infrastructure, right, number two is what we need is we need developers to actually focus on the thing that we're calling for, which is, real world applications, use cases. So, but before developers can focus on that, they need the tools to build it, right? It's like you can't build a house without the wood and like a hammer and stuff. It's the same idea here where it's, the original tweet I saw was like, well, we need to focus on building a house, but like, you're using your hand as a hammer and like you have 3 pieces of wood, but you need all of the resources, you need all of the, foundations to actually create the application, or in this analogy, the house. And that was my response. And I think to kind of circle this back around, I think solutions like the faucet and creating things that reduce friction, and most importantly, this is kind of how we achieve, in essence, mainstream adoption. Kind of just echoing Ake, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a It's a really good point. I agree. And also, what's the real world, right? In 2023, I'm losing track a little bit of like the line is really getting blurred, like Elon Musk, fighting Zuckerberg and all this stuff. I mean, what's the real world? A node running somewhere, like in Singapore, for example. It's a real node, right? And it's same as a server. Would you say a server is real? Is a real like instance? It's all hardware. It's running hardware somewhere. And all the stuff we are doing is like it's all like metaverse, digital, things. I think it's like, the lines are really getting blurred. When you say like when you talk to someone and say, hey, we need real world crypto adoption. But what I think it's almost there. I don't even know what what a lot of people mean by this when they say this.
I think we actually talked about this a little bit in FAFO number 1. But I think generally, we posted a clip on Twitter. I'm going to kind of go a little bit on top for a second, but we posted a clip on Twitter recently that was like a preview clip of FAFO number 1. It was me saying, we have all these. It was actually this almost exact conversation where I was saying, we have all these developer tools, we have all these cool DeFi products, but we don't. And they cut me off and I said, but here's the big problem with Web3, and here's how we solve it. And if I remember correctly, I said something like the big problem with Web3 is like usability and onboarding. And I think mainstream adoption, we throw this term around all the time. Everybody throws this term around, but what does mainstream adoption mean? How do we achieve it? Nobody really knows, but I think in general, what it refers to is that, you have the term mainstream. Mainstream refers to mainstream audiences. So, what is the mainstream audience? It's people that, probably aren't listening to this podcast. It's people that,
for sure.
It's the people at Starbucks and the people that aren't looped into any of this, right? Web3 right now still definitely feels like an in-group of technology. Like if you go to a subreddit for computer building, right? It's just like a bunch of people that are very specialized in like a certain field. And they love talking about it. They love interacting with it and building computers. I see Web3, of course Web3 is on a much bigger scale, but I see Web3 as something similar right now, where it really is just a bunch of enthusiasts, a bunch of developers, a bunch of people learning about the space that are just talking to each other and like saying, oh, look at how fast this transaction went through. When, in reality, if you told the average person on the street, look at the Solana transaction, it just finalized in 1 second. And with, 2 units of gas, then they're going to look at you like you're crazy. I mean, they're not going to know what you're talking about. So I think
this is so true. It's just so funny. We just take the things that they are, but
right. The point in which we reach mainstream adoption will be when I don't think to go back to the same analogy.
Yeah, sorry, just one thing before. Yeah, sorry to break in there, sure. But it's just so funny. It's just so funny. I was thinking about this the other day. Imagine someone doing some freelance work and then receiving $500 for it, but it's in USDC, right? It's normal for us, right? But then this part, why are you saying to me this 4-letter ticker which has USD in this? What's C in there? And then if this person wants to cash out, and I cannot cash out because I need $10 on top of it. But I have the dollars, right? If it's on Ethereum, for example, you need to pay for the transaction. But then this person goes I need to pay for the transaction in something else, which is Ether. What's Ether? What's the base currency of the network? It's just a lot of you need $10 more, but you need those in Ether, not in the USDC that you already have. Now that this weird USDC that you have, you can't really do anything with this because you have the money at the same time you don't have the money. It's just to a lot of people it's probably super funny. I mean it's super funny to me. It's a lot of people it's just super confusing. Yeah, so.
Right. Yeah, that's to us, all 3 of us have been in Web3 for years, and transactions and block explorers and gas usage, and
it just gets so used to it.
It's just second nature. It's that's how it all works. But most people I think I've probably at this point explained what a blockchain is to my parents maybe 10 times, and they still have no idea what technology it is. So like I was saying is I think that what a lot of people for some reason envision, to go back to the analogy of showing a random person in the street how fast your Solana transaction went through. I think for some reason a lot of people see the future as whenever we have mainstream adoption, you'll show your 1 second transaction to this random person. They'll be like, oh, this is so cool, and they'll know exactly what you're talking about. But I don't see this as being the future at all. I think that instead of everybody knowing what a transaction is and transaction finality and all these things that we take for granted but are to most people extremely complicated, I think instead what we'll see is that most people will either not know what any of this is, or they'll have a very rudimentary understanding of it. Because instead what will happen is that we'll see blockchain and Web3 be abstracted and combined into existing technologies and existing infrastructure, Maybe your digital Samsung wallet, right? Samsung phones, I'm a Samsung user. I know most people aren't, but Samsung phones have like these digital wallets, right? Where it's pretty much just your cash or credit card. But what if there was like a seamless integration with cryptocurrency and it was all handled in the back end and you didn't even know that you're using the blockchain, but you reap the benefits of the blockchain and of trustlessness and of permissionlessness and decentralization, right? It's like, we love blockchain because it has all these different things. It's permissionless, trustless, but most people, they don't know what those things mean. They don't care about these things, but we know that they're beneficial and that they pose real utility, right? Kind of the core value of blockchain, like I mentioned, trustlessness, permissionlessness, decentralization. I think, in my opinion, the idea is like, well, how do we get people to use these technologies, to use blockchain without having to learn about transaction finality or about the way that blocks are linked together or the 51% problem of Bitcoin. I mean, these are concepts that are totally out of reach for most people. The same way, everybody knows the internet, everyone knows how to use the internet. But if you ask most people about backend network infrastructure, if you ask me about backend network infrastructure, I'm going to have no idea what you're talking about, let alone most people. So it's just because these things with the internet, especially with all this time in these years, have been abstracted behind layers and layers of UX, of usability, where most people that use the internet have zero idea how it works in the back end, including me in most cases, to be honest. I know more about how Web3 works than the Web2 internet works.
Same.
It's just,
Same.
It's just the specialty. And I think it's the case will be the same for most people. You'll have a few people that know how the Web3 backend works and how all these things fit together. And then you'll have the users, which have no idea how any of this works. They don't know that they're using blockchain. If they do, then they barely know what they're doing. But they're still getting the benefits of the reason why we're all creating these things, right? The kind of three things I mentioned earlier. Anyways, I'm kind of going on a tangent, but this is how I see Web3 adoption with normal people, as I think it'll all be abstracted behind a million layers, and I don't know, we'll see.
Yeah, right. But something else just came up in my mind the other day. I think yesterday we were talking, or a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday with David, and David, I think you mentioned that Learn Web3 DAO, which is one of the, if not the number one, the Web3 education platform. They have signups for their courses or something like this. They have a lot of Ethereum developers as opposed to AI developers, for example, right? Can you remind me of the numbers?
Yeah, so I was checking
100,000
on their degrees. So yeah, they say here 165,000 on the Ethereum developer degree. And right now it grew quite a bit, about 1,000 on the AI developer degree.
Right.
A side note here is that I believe these numbers on the Ethereum one include the people that already signed up on the previous version. So it's probably the numbers, coming from a couple of years.
100,000, yeah. The point here is how 100,000 plus people or 200,000 plus people, which is a lot of developers, again, 5 years ago, I would never imagine this number of developers, but that's a lot of developers, and these are the people we are taking care of, right? These are the people who will do all these creative things, all these applications, all this adoption, all of this stuff. But so it's important, for these people to be comfortable. Right. So it's just adding on to what you said, Ethan. And then again, it's also showing that it's June 2023 today, and there are more Web3 developers than there are AI developers. So it's really is the kind of the financial it's becoming the kind of the financial and decentralized fabric of our society. This thing that is open to everybody. So yeah.
Wait. I think we usually underestimate the number of developers in the ecosystem. It's I don't know how much time we have left, but I might go a little bit off topic here. I know that our original topic was Web3 security. We know what we're talking about.
Go ahead. It's chill.
A few different routes.
FAFO and chill. Yeah.
Right. So, I think when you look at most developer reports, so I'm going to talk about Electric Capital. I love Electric Capital. I love the guys over there. I've talked to them before. They're really great at what they do. But the developer report, right? This is the report that they release. Previously, it was like once or twice every year. Now it's actually a live counter of developers that they've released. So you can go to the website, you can see how many developers have been on X chain and Y chain. It's in my opinion, of course, they're a large organization, I'm just one person, but it's in my opinion that their information is kind of inaccurate. It actually underestimates the amount of developers in the space. So I think, if I remember correctly, their December 2022 developers report was 30,000 total developers in the space, which I think is a severe underestimate. Maybe not, I don't think there's 100,000 active developers, people that are building every single day. But I think there are probably at least 100,000 people that at least know the foundations of Web3 development and at least dabble in it here and there, right? You don't have to be a full-time developer to be considered a Web3 developer, in my opinion. So what I've done over the past 6 months, actually, we're almost to the 7th month of 2023, is, originally in January and December, I'm sure we can go into much more depth in this in a later episode, but when we were forming and changing the developer relations position here at Chainstack, we needed an anchor to base our KPIs off of. And I talked about this actually in our recent Crypto Jobs interview. But the problem that we came to was like, well, if we're going to track developer signups for developer relations managers, then, that's hard to do because the market fluctuates a lot. And with market fluctuations brings fluctuations in active developers. So if we lose half of our global Web3 developer base, then the numbers and KPIs have to shift and the expectations have to shift for KPIs for developer relations. So this is the foundation of the problem that we had to solve. So what I did is I talked to a lot of people. I talked to Electric Capital. I talked to Solana, the Solana Foundation, which actually does something very similar to this. I reviewed their code and I consulted with a lot of people. And eventually I came up with a solution that essentially indexes continually 24/7 on multiple different lanes. It indexes repositories in GitHub. And it does this with certain keywords. And it looks at these repositories, it looks at all of the commits to these repositories, every single commit, every single file that meets a certain criteria, marks the repository down, looks at every commit, and then from all this data, it's an insane amount of data. It's like hundreds of thousands of data points. But from all this data, what it can get is, number one, the number of repositories that connect to a certain blockchain. So I think the last number I had was 5,800 repositories that were connecting to Solana, which is pretty cool. And what you also get, in addition to the number of repositories for each chain, which by itself isn't a super helpful number, you also get this number that I call unique committers. So it's not developers, it's unique committers, right? So these are people that in the past 30 days have pushed a commit on GitHub to a repository that connects to a certain blockchain, right? So what we can say is that, well, this person has contributed to a repository that connects with Solana. So it depends how you define the word Solana developer, but we can call this person a developer, or at least somebody that has some level of knowledge of Solana development because they're contributing to repositories that connect to Solana or Polygon or Ethereum or vice versa. So this number, this unique committers number, is what we use to base our KPIs off of. And the point here is that this number was pretty large for a lot of these blockchains. And at first I was like, my data's wrong. There's no way, because Electric Capital says there's 600 Avalanche developers, and I'm seeing 1,500 here. Where did I mess up? What's wrong with my code? But after doing, of course, a lot more consulting, I've sent this website and this tool to a lot of key developer relations people in the industry and had a lot of people look at it. And I've also looked at the code multiple times and revamped it. And it's pretty accurate as far as I can tell. And this means that in reality, when you look at exclusively GitHub, and many people, including myself in a lot of cases, don't have their key projects and their key code live on GitHub. So you can take this number and actually add probably 5 or even 10% to it to see the actual number of developers. But we can look at Avalanche, for example. Avalanche, over the past 30 days, has had about 1,500 developers, or not developers, unique committers. So people that have committed to a repository that connects to Avalanche in the past 30 days. This is pretty cool. This is over 1,000 more developers than traditional developer reports, including one by Electric Capital report. And this is, I think, pretty indicative of the health of the ecosystem. Because even if you don't have somebody that is committing and building a Web3 project every single day, because there's most developers, most people, especially people with like technical aptitude, they don't have the time or resources to be in Web3 every single day. There's very few people who can do that, right? That's why when you look at full-time developers in Web3, that number is significantly smaller than the number of people that are passively or actively contributing to Web3 projects. But in my opinion, I think even if you're passively contributing to a Web3 project, you're still a Web3 developer. You understand it enough to contribute.
For sure. For sure.
So these numbers I've been pretty excited about. I think BNB, I've been redoing BNB, but originally it was a few thousand BNB, 1,500 in Avalanche, I think 2,800 in Polygon. And of course, you have multi-chain, and so like some of these developers might be overlapping with each other, but in general, I was really happy with these numbers. And I think the ecosystem, even right now, actually on brand with FAFO and Chill. If you look at Twitter and you look at all these things and you see like these bear markets, and we had somebody that created 13,000 accounts to get $200, like that's full on bear market. That's just that's what happens to the bear market. But when you take a step back of like the things that people are doing or the things that people are saying, when you look at purely the things that people are building, right? The applications that people are building, the volume of people that are building applications, then you very quickly see like there's a good amount of people building in Web3. And all of these people have at least a fundamental understanding of Web3. So all these people have taken the opportunity and taken the time to learn Web3. So, there's something here beyond just like the FUD that's happening everywhere. So this is at least my observation, and that's why I'm never scared about the future of Web3, because I'm like, we have all these talented developers that are building really cool things, and you can see it from the numbers. So, but what I'm going to be doing is later this week, probably actually before this video comes out, the page that I mentioned, the developers page that tracks repositories and the number of developers for each chain that I index, I'm going to make that public. So I'm going to post a tweet, post a video, stuff like that, where you can actually go in there, you can see all the numbers, you can see every repository that it's indexed, you can click in the repository, look at it, and you can see exactly what we're talking about and see how many people are building Web3. It's a lot, and it's pretty exciting.
This is very exciting. The link should also be in the description. I would think it probably is if it goes live before the video does. So guys, go check it out. I had again, enjoying the insider opportunity here. I had the pleasure of viewing this a little bit, before anyone else did, and it's really awesome. I'm really looking forward to this. Next episode, we should probably go through this in more detail, or at least have a segment on this one. But yeah, get hyped, everybody, and it's really, I agree with all the points that you mentioned, Ethan, as well. It's to have an analogy of a user, of just an end user. You're still like a full Web3 user. If you go pay for your like a carton of milk in Walmart or whatever with your Apple Pay credit card, right? And then you go back and you stake Ether, search to Ether to get your rewards, right? You're a full Web3 native, even though you go out there and just pay with your stuff. Same for developers, right? To be able to develop stuff on Web3, which is not so difficult, by the way, for anyone out there, at least to get started. You're like a full Web3 developer, even if you develop all this other stuff and do all this other stuff. That's fun. And the other point is you still need to be able to build the front end and on the back end, which is not Web3 native, for people to be able to use your decentralized applications. So yeah, this is a really good point. I think this is a really good point. And your indexed repository and developer activities, and we're looking forward to it in what the actual numbers are going to be and in tracking those. So yeah,
the whole project was made in a process of FAFOing, and because I think really that project was made almost exclusively with most projects that I make, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, is just like me alone, just figuring stuff out, just looking through documentation, just whatever. And that's good because it's just that's as me and ChatGPT, that's usually the combo. But for this project, I really wanted something that was as accurate as possible, because when I build things alone, they're cool, but they aren't always super accurate because you need input, right? You need third-party input for things to go through iterations and to make sure that what you're building works, right, and is a good idea. So this is probably one of the first projects that I built that was built upon exclusively the advice and the thoughts of other people, right? So, the technique that the Solana Foundation was using applied to EVM chains and Solana. The technique that Electric Capital was using, taking that a little bit, and kind of working with that and learning about how they do it and kind of potentially the holes in their process and the strengths of their process. Sending it to people like the Avalanche team, the developer relations guy over there, Nader, right? I'm pretty sure he even spent some time on the application, and a bunch of other cool dev roles. This is really important. And in the process of building an application, I'm going to do a kind of a circle around to like everything that we've been talking about today. So when you're building an application, people are really important. This is a key component. Whether it's people that are giving you feedback about what to build or how to build it, whether it's people that are giving you feedback on what you've already built, right? People that maybe have more experience than you, maybe even have less experience than you. Everybody's opinion is really important when it comes to building a balanced application. And also, people that are giving you feedback for the wrong reasons is also helpful. This is something that we experienced with the recent faucet train. Somebody that, without them unintentionally, they helped us create a much stronger, more efficient, and innovative faucet solution. Whereas if they never would have done that, we would have been stuck with the previous faucet, which was open vulnerabilities and it wasn't perfect. So, these things are always good, right? Whether it's somebody that breaches your smart contract, as long as it's not too detrimental to your career or whatever, or somebody that is giving you feedback just out of positivity and out of good things. Both of these things I think are equally as helpful, because when you're building an application, feedback and the opinions and kind of thoughts of the people are really important to building something that's balanced, right? Because a lot of the time when you build something exclusively alone, it has biases, it has holes, because everybody's human. You can't think of everything, you can't fix every problem. So that's why feedback is important. That's why focusing on security through the means of others, kind of like the topic that we talked about with the faucet and all these things, that's why it's so important. Because you want something that works for everybody. So audits are really cool. This is the quintessential getting feedback from people for things like security, right? That you're paying people to give you feedback, basically. And that's why they're so great. That's why everybody uses audits Certic and stuff like that. Because it works, right? That's proof that feedback, especially from people that know more than you about security, that's what works, and that's why you need it to build a good application. And you see people that don't do that. That's when we see things like the $100 billion Harmony Bridge hack, which I think about all the time. That was actually by one multisig. That's an example of something that probably could have been prevented by a security audit. But anyways, these are all things that add to the point of the importance of Web3 security, and through the means of Web3 security, feedback from other people, and going through iterations, stuff like that. But I don't know. Do you guys agree with that idea, that sentiment?
Yeah, for sure. Something else to add. The key points, key takeaways from this video for everybody out there is Web3 has so much stuff that needs to be built out there, and is just a lot of territory still uncovered in there. And for anyone building, don't just go and copy stuff or just fork a working faucet and just do a copy of this, and just have another mediocre solution out there on the market and hey, my job is done, right? It's FAFOing into actually what needs to happen and talking to people, and it does not, it takes more time, but it doesn't take as much more time as you would think. But what you come out of this process in the end is, I think it's you feel accomplished, right? You feel accomplished. You feel you're creating something unique, like the faucet or the solution that Ethan built around the developer activity. And you get this thing that you can talk about, to connect with other people in the industry as well, right? You wouldn't go to other developers and say, hey, just chat, right? Let's have a look at my, mediocre copy of Electric Capital report, right? It's not something that you're going to do, right? But if you actually take the time and the effort, into building this, into thinking what really matters in there, you're going to feel, much more satisfaction accomplished. Your network will grow, which is super important for you as a person always. And this thing that we have here in Web3 is just a lot of opportunities in there. You can just go and build pretty much anything if you put, thought into it, it'll be better than all the existing solutions. It's not like Web 2 or, Web 1 or, whatever. I'm sure there are a lot of opportunities in those as well. But in Web 3, there is a lot more stuff that needs to be built that you don't even need to brainstorm. You just go any direction, put thought into it, and you come on top as, as a better, expert, professional person, feel so much more satisfied. That's why I love Web 3. So yeah, that's my key takeaway.
It's all in the process of FAFO. This is
FAFO, yeah. FAFO,
this is the
FAFO.
point. This is the process of building things, right? You're FAFOing, you're figuring things out. But yeah, this is I think that the last episode of FAFO and Chill was you guys talking about the ChatGPT plugin, the Chainstack ChatGPT plugin, and some of like our AI ventures, stuff like that, which is pretty interesting. I watched it the other day. It was a pretty cool conversation. So definitely, if you guys haven't, check that out. We have an episode 2 that was released last Friday, I believe. Go check it out. It was a really cool conversation all about all things AI. I believe you guys even showcased, if I remember correctly, the ChatGPT plugin that we've been working on, which we're making a lot of developments on actually today as well, and yesterday or the past few days. It should be released, actually verified, hopefully within the next few weeks. It's really exciting though. I'm very excited to get it out. I think it's a super cool tool. But anyways, I'm going off ramp again. So go watch the second episode of FAFO and Chill will be linked in the description of this video. We also did our first episode a few weeks back, in which we talked about kind of everything about FAFO and what it means, and the things that we've been building, and how it all relates to the central idea of FAFOing outside of the market, building the things that you enjoy, going through a process, and just kind of exploring Web3, enjoying the space. So this is FAFO and Chill, and this is our third episode. If you enjoyed it, then we have the like section and the comment section. Like and comment and subscribe, like Ike said on our first one. It's really important. We tweet about this every Friday as well. There, go ahead, Ike.
Yeah, and as always, if you just want to talk, or if you want like the best leading Web3 infrastructure, if you need a custom solution, if you need custom anything, or anything, just talk to me, DM me, or there is a link in the description, or any of the people in this episode. We love helping we love helping everyone out there, especially with Web3. We can give you a custom deal, we can give you anything. Just talk to us. So yeah. All right.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Ike. Thank you, David. Really cool conversation. Follow us at Chainstack HQ on Twitter. We have all of our links in the description, our LinkedIn, our Twitter, as well as the Twitter accounts from each of the speakers today. Like Ike mentioned, DM us. We love to chat. This is our job, basically. So send us a message, and we can talk about anything from this episode or any topic you want. If you want to talk about ChatGPT or web infrastructure, all these things are totally open to us. So again, thank you everybody for hopping in today. And I think we're good to go. I think that was
all right.
FAFO and Chill number 3.